Greetings everyone, and welcome to the 4th installment of the Green Lantern Corps edition. Today I will very briefly, and I mean very briefly, give kind of a small tidbit, more or less interesting facts about Tomar-Re, who we will actually see in the upcoming film. Now, there's not really a whole lot of information, at least I could find, in terms of a backstory for Tomar-Re, but what I have learned is that he was a renowned scientist on the planet Xudar, X-U-D-A-R. Somebody can pronounce the hyphenation and stuff of it in the comment box. And he actually became... that's a very bad thing, especially if you're speaking. Little note before I actually get into this, I am trying to practice public speaking stuff, so if you hear me actually correct myself out loud, that's why. It's not me being weird, it's just me trying to be proper. But Tomar-Re became a pivotal member actually of the Green Lantern Corps. The Guardians were actually so impressed with Tomar-Re that he became the guardian of the Book of Oa, which chronicled the Owens, aka the Guardians of the Universe, the formation of the Green Lantern Corps, the exile of Sinestro, basically every event that the Green Lantern Corps has ever had. Tomar-Re is basically the protector of that book. Again. And for a time he did actually train new Green Lantern Corps members until Kilowog, I believe, was actually, I think, became the drill sergeant. Somebody who, I'm sure DBZ can probably correct me on that, or someone who's a Green Lantern fan, because it's been a while since I've got my chronology and stuff. But in the Silver Age, he investigated the reports of abuses of power by Sinestro on his home planet. He was also a close friend of Abin. One of the most famous missions that Tomar-Re had, and when I read this, I was actually quite shocked. And this Tomar-Re has a personal connection to Superman, and I'll tell you why. Because in one of his sectors was the planet Krypton. Oh yeah. The planet Krypton, Superman's homeworld. And when Krypton was becoming increasingly unstable, Tomar-Re sought a rare compound called Stellarum, which would absorb some of the tectonic pressure and thus stabilize Krypton. And he gathered the compound was en route. However, a yellow solar flare blinded him and forced him to drop a lot of the Solarum. He did quickly recover, but discovered that he was actually short-sighted or nearly blind. He gathered what little he could without his sight, and he proceeded to Krypton. As he was closing into the planet, his vision started to return. Everything became clear. However, the first thing he saw upon his sight actually returning to him was the imminent destruction of Krypton. And he was very badly wounded by all the chunks of kryptonite and meteor rock and everything that exploded off of the planet. And to me, I think that this gives Tomar-Re a very personal connection to Superman, because imagine how it makes Tomar-Re feel knowing that had he been a little bit faster and a little bit more cautious, that he could have saved the Kryptonians. And imagine kind of a guilt trip that he feels about this, knowing that Superman is the only survivor of the planet Krypton. And so in a way, if you think about it, Tomar-Re, he feels a personal sense of guilt towards Superman I guess in a weird kind of cosmic way. And he would later become a senior honored member of the Corps. However, this would not come without a cost. During the crisis when the Lord of the Unliving, Necron, tried to take down the planet Oa, or try to take over the universe and everything, he resurrected the spirit of Tomar-Re's deceased father. This put Tomar-Re through mental anguish because he had to basically fight his father. However, Tomar-Re overcame it, and then during the Crisis of Infinite Earths, he took part in the battle of the antimatter universe on Quord, the Yellow Lantern homeworld, and prevented the destruction of the Anti-Monitor's remaining tethers to the physical realm. He was dealt mortal injuries by Goldface, who is an old Silver Age Hal Jordan villain, and with his last dying breath gave his power ring to John Stewart. Now, Hal Jordan had retired at this time, however, he did take back the power ring that he had passed on to Stewart. And tragically, because of these injuries, Tomar-Re had passed away, so his legacy, his generational legacy is passed on through his son Tomar-2. And Tomar-2 tries to live up to his father's expectations. However, currently in the comics, he's trying to kill Hal Jordan for revenge because basically he was left for dead. He was presumed dead and left. So he was basically left to die by Hal Jordan, at least in his eyes, and he was interrogated and brutally tortured by the Manhunters. So, unfortunately, there is not really much that I can tell about Tomar-Re, and what little information I can dig up that is interesting or forms a kind of backstory. It's funny because Tomar-Re is a very recognized, well, not the most recognized, but you get what I mean. Aside from Kilowog, most people can recognize him, even if they don't know his name. Most casual fans can go, you know, oh yeah, that's the fish-looking dude with like the fin and stuff, and has the bird-like features. Even I knew who Tomar-Re was, but I couldn't never say his name, but I could recognize his face. Tomar-Re is just that kind of character. But that is unfortunately it, guys. There very little information, but I at least hope that the whole Krypton thing at least is interesting enough that it kind of overshadows the lack of information that I've kind of shown in this video. But now we move on to the man that gives Hal Jordan his power ring. The man that brought the Silver Age Green Lantern to the dance. Abin Sur. The man who passes on his power ring to Hal Jordan. To give a basic origin of Abin, he was originally a history professor on the planet Ungara, I believe is how you pronounce it, or Ungora. He actually appointed the Green Lantern of Sector 2814 in the mid-1860s. And he secretly loved his best friend's wife. However, he never overtly spoke of it. He was recruited by a Green Lantern known as Stark Core, and he had actually come to Earth on many different occasions. In the old Western times, he teamed up with an ancestor of Hal Jordan's, I know, bit of irony, to battle an alien named Traitor. He also, during World War II, had briefly encountered Starman and Bulletman, and then they battled an alien under the control of Mr. Mind, one of Captain Marvel's villains. He had also visited Earth during the Silver and Golden Ages, where he actually encountered John Jones, the Martian Manhunter. However, while he was on patrol, he was attacked and pursued by the being known as Legion on his way back to Oa. badly injured and with his spaceship badly damaged, he made an emergency landing on Earth and in search of his power ring chose, you guessed it, Hal Jordan. However, during a brief time of the 0 Hour storyline, he was pulled into the present where he assisted the Dark Stars in a battle against Utopia. Or Entropy, I cannot pronounce the name correctly, before being returned to his own time. And at one point in the afterlife, he had assisted Swamp Thing, Alec Holland, in rescuing his daughter from hell. It is later revealed that a very own part of his soul was being tortured in hell, while his spirit acted as a companion to Hal Jordan when he was the Spectre. He eventually freed himself from hell and assisted Jordan on several spiritual adventures and metaphysical dilemmas when Jordan was the Spectre. However, he would engage in a form of reincarnation and was reborn as the daughter of his best friend and his wife. And at some point during his life, they never really have explained it, Abin Sur had sired a child called Omen Sur, who grew up to be a man in charge of the Black Circle crime syndicate. Hang on a second. There we go. Sorry about that. Grew up to run the Black Circle crime syndicate. Angry at the fact that his deceased father abandoned him for the Green Lantern Corps and didn't choose to pass on the power ring to him, he decided to take his anger out on all Green Lanterns and eventually became a major member of the Sinestro Corps, the Yellow Lanterns. However, he was of course stopped by Hal Jordan's successor, or Abin's successor's successor, quote unquote, which was Kyle Rayner, the Green Lantern that I grew up with, by the by. And second generation Guardian of the Universe named Lyanna, I believe is how you pronounce that. And that's a basic origin for Abin Sur. And I'm looking forward, I'm hoping during the movie, or even in possible sequels, that we'll get to see a lot more of Abin Sur. Like, I do get the fact that Abin Sur is going to just be the guy that passes on the ring, but I hope at least in the movie that they give some sort of backstory, and then in a future sequel they elaborate on him. And one of the great things is that Green Lantern Emerald Knights that's coming out is that it's going to elaborate on just that. It's going to elaborate on how Abin Sur got recruited, and it's also going to elaborate on his time as a Green Lantern. And I like that because Abin Sur, he is a very important part of the Green Lantern mythos. So I look forward to seeing him in the movie, however briefly he may show up, and maybe hopefully we'll see more of him in future sequels. So that is that. Now we move on, unfortunately, as short as it may be. I could talk, like I said, I could talk about all the other Lanterns. I could talk about Jade, I could talk about Gwart, Mogo, I could talk briefly about Kyle Rayner, John Stewart, and all them, but you know, it would take too long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip to the very end here, guys. I know a lot of you want me to talk about many different Lanterns, many different things, but not to be an asshole, but I'm pretty sure that if you guys can make the time, that you can do all this research yourself. But I'm going to go into the final part. I'm going to talk about the Guardians of the Universe. And then, after that, that will be that.